Welcome everybody. We are at 8:30. Let's get this started on. Please grab a seat. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. My name is Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Hey, how you all doing? Important to know that a couple quick announcements. We'll probably announce them a couple times. There's absolutely no smoking on church property. Please be mindful of the facility. The church is very gracious in letting us use their $10 million facility. All they ask is please be mindful of it. There was an announcement that we have to make. Somebody had left an empty whiskey bottle in the restroom, and there's kids that use these, and the teacher found them. So please, just we don't care if we understand it. If you got to drink, take the bottle with you, and if you got to leave a bottle, please leave a full one. Anyway, Nick's going to come up here and share this speak. Let's have some fun.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nick. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a 1-hour meeting that meets every Saturday at St. Paul's Lutheran Church on 301 North Main Street in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. This business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. till 7:30 right here. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name? Yes. Hello.
Linda.
Hi, Linda. Welcome. All right. Oh, yes, sir.
Raphael.
Hey, Raphael. Welcome. Awesome. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. Excellent. Are there any announcements from the floor for the good of AA? Yes, sir.
There's flyers on the back table. There's the church and shore roundup. I believe it's November 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It's pretty powerful. Never experienced it. Be part of it if you're into recovery. Back table.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Brad Alcoholic.
Hey, brother.
Last Saturday of every month, we have an AA meeting out in Niagara in a very special spot, places like Wonderland. 10 a.m. the last Saturday of every month. If you want any information, I'll give it to you.
Thanks, Brad.
Next Friday, the 26th, this is not an actual AA event, but it is a sober event. The 26th at 7:30 in the Percy Fire Hall. It's a Halloween costume party. If you want to find out about it, I have tickets. They're $5 in advance or $10 at the door. A great way to stay sober and have a good time for Halloween. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who can't afford them can put donations in a jar on the table marked Big Book and CD donations. If you'd like a CD of any speaker, past or present, please see myself or any home group member after the meeting. They're available free of charge. And with that, I'd like to ask Amy to come up and read the AA preamble.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Please help me welcome Sean up for the 12 Steps of Recovery.
just hold it. Okay. What do you got here? Okay. 12 steps. Hi, I'm Sean. I'm an alcoholic. 12 steps of AA. Number 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these secret defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Thank you.
I wish I was 6 foot tall, man. 7th tradition we have here. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, I'd like to pass the baskets. We have no dues or fees, but we do have expenses. This group provides many services. Your donations cover rent, big books, CDs, events, and workshops. There is absolutely no smoking on church property. Just walk across the street and please dispose of your butts. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Which leads me to our speaker. Comes to us on loan from the 5th tradition group out of Denver, Colorado, Patrick S.
Patrick, alcoholic. Actually, my name is Patrick Francis Xavier Sweeney, and I'm an alcoholic. You know, my first sponsor, a guy named Ken O'Brien, used to announce his whole name, and he would love it when people would come up to him and say, "This is a program of anonymity, and you're not supposed to say your last name." And I said that to him. I made the mistake of saying that to him as well. And he said to me, he says, "Well, the way I read it, it says press, radio, and films. And I don't think the New York Times or any TV station is interested in you getting sober." So he goes, "We give our names out here so we know who we are. So you know who I am. And if you're interested in my number afterwards, I'm more than happy to give it to you." I'd like to take a minute and let God catch up because he's running a little late, you know. And I would just, I'd like to thank Ron for asking me to come speak here tonight. I was in town for my uncle's funeral yesterday. I live in Denver, Colorado, and he asked me to come down and speak. And I have a good friend, Brad, here that runs an equine therapy ranch over there in Lambertville, that they have a great meeting over there Saturday, 10 a.m. If you don't get that chance to get over there, you should definitely check it out. It's like 100 people. It's an amazing space. And you know, Ron was saying earlier about let's have some fun tonight, and you know, that's what I'd like to do. You know, I don't want to bore you with any of my selfish, self-centered life, you know, and most of it has been, just about 98% of it has been selfish and self-centered. And you know, one of the great things about the program that worked for me when I came here, because I was raised in a church and, you know, the altar boy and religion classes every day and had to go to mass 3 times a week and that stuff. And I grew up with a lot of insanity, and I would then go to church or go to school, and they would tell me that the reason all that insanity was happening at home was because, you know, I was born into sin and I'm a sinner and all this other stuff, and I always had a problem with God. And one of the things when I came here, I heard something I'd never heard before, because I knew, of course, this is all about the money and this is all about Jesus, and I knew that was going to be the case. So, you know, but alcohol and drugs has a way of making me desperate. I don't know about you, but desperate that I was even willing to try that, you know. And one of the things they said in here was, don't be afraid to ask yourself what these things mean to you. You know, the steps, and first of all, I should say that I do not represent AA. I don't represent even my home group, the Fifth Tradition group. As a matter of fact, I didn't even tell any of them I was speaking here, to be honest with you. And I'm not an expert. And I love the story of them looking for, you know, statistics on alcoholics getting sober, and they called central office in New York, the GSO office, and they said, since you guys are experts on alcoholics, how do we tell who's going to get sober and who's not? And their answer was, we don't know, and we don't know, you know. It says in how it works, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path, you know, and the path is what I'm going to talk about tonight, not so much my drunk-a-log, because I'm kind of tired of it. I got sober in March 2nd of 1987. I kind of said that like I own it, but as a matter of fact, I was surrendered to this program in March, because I had been coming around for like 2 years, and see, I don't fit in anywhere, and I don't like you people. You laugh too much, you know, you get along too well, and you couldn't be as alcoholic as I am, because I don't get along with anybody, and I hate everybody, right? Especially myself, and if you want to be friends with me, I really don't like you, you know. And so it was really, you know, I really believe back in March of 1987 that I was surrendered to this program. Yeah, that's just my opinion. But back to what I was talking about, when I came here, I heard that they said, don't be afraid to ask yourself what these things mean to you, right? And they also said something which, you know, if you think about it, it's in our big book in We Agnostics. It's actually kind of insulting, you know, and I'm insulted easily, you know, because sometimes I think I'm smart and I'm actually not, but it says, and this is the way my sponsor would read it to me, it says, Patrick, don't be afraid to ask yourself, Patrick, or let your prejudices, Patrick, prevent you, Patrick, from asking yourself, Patrick, what these things mean to you, Patrick. And they're talking about the spiritual stuff, the spiritual side of life. And the 12 steps, in my opinion, and like I said, this is just all my opinion, I'm not an expert. My opinion is that the 12 steps isn't about to teach me about a religion or any of the other stuff. It's really about to uncover in me what is natural to me, so that I can live my life as me, comfortably as me, because I could never do that before. From day one, way before I took a drink, my first drug of choice was throwing rocks at cop cars. And you may not think that that's a drug, but I'm telling you, I don't care what's going on with you. If you throw a rock at a cop car, you will not be worried about that thing anymore. You will not be thinking about what was bothering you, because you'll be running your butt off. But so back to don't be afraid to ask yourself what these things mean to you, and we're going to have a little fun here tonight. So it says that we get to ask ourselves what these terms mean, these spiritual terms, you know, like praying, prayer, meditation. You get to ask yourself what these things mean to you. And the 12 steps and doing the actions of the 12 steps is how I discovered my own definitions of these things. And, you know, they have the 20 questions. And I took those 20 questions when I was like 15. And I got 17 of them. So I said yes, but I'm dyslexic. So they said if you only get 3, you might have a problem. So I had it flipped over. I thought, well, I didn't get 3 yes. And it was like, did you ever lose a job to drink? And I didn't even have a job yet, you know. And so one of the things I liked to do is I came up with my own questions, you know, that relate to me. And I don't know if they'll relate to you, but we get to do this here. You know, the Fourth Tradition gives us the right to be wrong. We could try anything we want when it comes to the structure of an AA meeting, do anything we want. I also started a meeting in Denver, Colorado, where we request that the people dress up and treat the meeting as sacred as possible, because we want our meeting, we believe AA is sacred, and we treat it that way. You know, I take good care of my truck and keep it clean and polished and everything else. Why would I not do the same for my own home group and my own AA meeting? So enough about that. So here is the questions we came up with for our home group, and you can see if they relate to your home group. All right, these are the questions on whether or not you might be an alcoholic, right? 1, if you hide bottles around the house and you live alone, you might be an alcoholic, right? 2, if you go out drinking to get away from the pressures of home life, and you live alone, you might be an alcoholic. All right. If you think that they should put more wine in wine bottles so there's enough for 2 people, you might be an alcoholic, right? And if you've ever tried to take out a restraining order against yourself, you might be an alcoholic, all right? If you've ever were reading about the evils of drinking alcohol and decided to quit reading, you might be an alcoholic. And one of my favorites that of course, got me in the door and related to this one which is, if you've ever been woken up to your rude neighbor mowing his lawn and decided he's just going to have to mow around me, you might be an alcoholic. If you answered yes to one of those, talk to Ron and sign up. But I'm originally from Pennsylvania, Hazleton, Pennsylvania, right up the road here. I grew up there in an Irish Roman Catholic neighborhood, south side of town. It was great. 4 sisters, a brother, mom and dad. And we just grew up with the all-American dream, family, welfare and a housing project, bunch of violence, The only way you relate to each other is by hitting, and there's 2 emotions, anger and silence. And, I was dating a girl the one time, she said to me, she goes, "You are the most violent, silent person I've ever met." I go, "How does that work? I haven't done anything." She goes, "Your silence is just so violent." And I was like, I don't get that, but I grew up that way. But like I said, I got sober in Los Angeles in 1987, and I'd like to talk about that because I could tell you about some trauma growing up, but I was used to that. I was born into that insanity, so I didn't know anything different. The real trauma I'd like to talk to you about was coming to Alcoholics Anonymous in 1987, let me tell you, and running across a guy by the name of Ken O'Brien, that guy I spoke of. And there's a place called Ohio Street out there, and they were all up in the front of the meeting. He was up here with like about 12 people, and I had come back in again, going in and out. And I came in the back door, and I can walk in, and they say around here, stay until you hear the music of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Well, this is my music, and this is what I related to. This was me hearing the music. And I walked in the back, and he turned and looked, and it was about from here to the kitchen away. And he goes, "Hey, half measures, I heard you went out again." And I was like, "What?" And everybody's looking at me. He goes, "You see, us down here, we're willing to do what it takes to stay sober. I don't know about you, but we're doing what it takes. We're working the steps. We're going to meetings. We're calling each other. We're supporting each other. What are you doing so we know what not to do? And hey, tell us what you were doing before you went out so we can benefit from it." And I was like, what do you, I wasn't, prepared for that, obviously, hungover and that stuff. I was just expecting, oh, you went out, all this other stuff. But, you would probably get arrested today if you did that to a newcomer. But I needed to hear it that way. That's the kind of the mindset that I grew up in. And like we used to say, get a sponsor who speaks louder than the voices in your head. And I needed Ken O'Brien. And he used to say things to me like, most people have delusions of grandeur. He goes, "You have delusions of adequacy." He goes, "You don't, this is the stuff he used to say to me all the time." And I used to, okay, and I would just follow him around and do everything he said. We'd have to mop up everything, to clear all these chairs out, do all that stuff. And I just thought it was, I grew up with all that guilt and punishment stuff and a capricious God that was judgmental and punishing and all that stuff. So to me, I deserved it all. And I didn't realize that what they were doing was they were keeping me busy because they understood that I was an alcoholic, and I was a young alcoholic. I was 25, and they knew that my mind was just crazy, like a whirling blender going on, going crazy. And the way I dealt with that all my life was drugs and alcohol. And now I didn't have the medication, and if I was to stay sober and not go crazy, that they decide, they used to keep you real busy all the time, and they tell you what meetings to go to. And I know you're not allowed to do that. And I hear a lot of people say to me today, if I came in here and anybody ever told me what to do, I would have walked right out. And I say, they would have let you walk out, because they know, and they knew back then that you could walk out of here, but we're very confident that drugs and alcohol would chase you right back in here. Because if you think we're scary, when you stay out there long enough, you'll see some scary stuff. And, so they had me doing stuff like greeting. And now I was pretty much a sociopath. I was doing that other stuff, that we used to call Peruvian marching powder, which is, not to correct, it should be called Peruvian crawling powder, because after you do it, aren't you really crawling on the floor under the windows, peeking up all night, looking for the FBI. But anyway, drinking all the time, So I wasn't really prepared to be a greeter when I got here, and I had never done anything in my life to prepare myself to be a greeter, And so now they have me greeting at the door, and I had been spending the last couple of years in a biker jacket, a black leather jacket with the hair down over my face and dark sunglasses and riding a Harley and, not talking to people and drinking myself into oblivion. And now I'm a couple days sober, and what do? They put me at a doorway to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And I always tell the story, in Hazleton, Pennsylvania, when I grew up there, in the 70s, these two guys were in a car accident. And I lived in this little housing project, this little welfare housing project up there, and everybody knew everybody, and everybody heard everything that was going on. And, so Richie and Mark were in a car accident, and Richie Guidish goes to the hospital and is in ICU with his head swollen up like a watermelon. But they weren't feeling sorry for him. Who they were feeling sorry for was Mark Shoemaker, because Mark Shoemaker didn't get injured one bit and had to go to court, and the court sent him to Alcoholics Anonymous. It was like they denounced his citizenship or something like that. I just remember everybody standing around going, oh man, AA, wow. So, that was what I knew of AA. So now I'm here and they're asking me to greet, and like I said, I'm not greeting material at the time, and I didn't want to do it in there and just say welcome to the meeting. So I'd be welcoming people to the meeting, and you know how we are as alcoholics, after a while, you walk in the room and you don't say hello back. Well, I have a problem with that, because I was a problem with everything. So after, I think it was like 2 weeks into it or something like that, one of these LA rockers was walking in, and I go, hi, welcome to the meeting. And he just completely blew me off and walked in. So now I'm running after him into the meeting going, hey, you, and I'm screaming, you don't understand the code around here, And my sponsor and all the old timers would sit over there all the time. And they come run up, they're like, no, it's not harassment, Patrick, it's hospitality, just welcome them. And I'm like, this guy, he didn't say hello and all this other stuff. And then I was like, well, I guess I screwed it up, and I guess I don't have to greet anymore. And he's like, oh, no, he goes, you've been the most entertaining greeter we've had in weeks. He goes, you're staying, And I got so much out of greeting. And it's amazing. To this day, I still greet. I've been sober 31 years in a row. And I always ask people that when they say how long they're sober, I say, is that consecutively in a row, And so I always say I have 31 years in a row. And I still greet. It's the most amazing thing, because it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. If you come to an AA meeting and start greeting, it kind of lightens it up, and you stop thinking. I stop thinking about myself, and I get out of my head, and I start realizing that the person coming in the room is maybe, they have a child in the hospital or something like that, or their parents are passing away or something like that. And I really realized that, it's just one of the best tools, and it always helps no matter what. And then, like I said, then they'd have us cleaning up and doing all this other stuff. And then they started making us go through the steps. And I don't know if you guys know anything about those steps, but they're like anti-Patrick, everything about them, But the first step, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, their lives would become unmanageable. I knew my life was unmanageable, but see, I didn't understand the definition of alcoholism as we define it around here. I was born an alcoholic. I told you my name. That pretty much tells you my whole history, right? My father died in an abandoned building up there, stumbled off to a miserable end, and they didn't find him for like a week. He was already, decomposing and stuff. That was my lot in life. I knew that that's the way I was going, so I didn't have a problem with that, and I've been told that that was my future. But when you came here and they said, no, alcoholism is a disease, and see, it's not, I always thought it was me punishing me and me sabotaging me and me doing this to me. And not until I got here did I realize that I have a disease, and it thinks, and I have the thoughts, and it's running my life, and it's like identity theft, and I'm just at the effect of it, and my whole life had been at the effect of it. And so many times, and I'm sure you relate, I would wake up and just go, how did I get here? And So when they told me that, and like I said, I had the gift of desperation, G-O-D, and I was willing to do whatever it takes, and I was willing to take a look at this stuff. They explained to me that, I didn't have a choice, and I cannot safely think or talk or hang around any alcohol or drugs or any of that stuff. I cannot do it. And see, I was always managing it, and I always thought the obsession of the mind was that I was totally obsessed with a drink, and I never really felt that way until I drank. And what they're talking about, the obsession of the mind for me is I'll be driving to work, and it'll be 6:30 in the morning, and all of a sudden have this thought in my head, oh, I wonder if that bartender, that good-looking bartender is still over there, and if she's working the morning shift, let me go over there and drive over. And I would drive over there, and the next thing you know, it's 3 days later, I lost my job, I crashed my truck, I got arrested, and I don't even know how it happened. And they said, that's the peculiar mental twist and the obsession of the mind that we're talking about, where I get, the disease fakes me out, and I just go with it thinking it's me. And then I had the problem with God when I came here, and I was talking to Ken O'Brien about God, and he goes, yeah, tell us about your problems with God. And I started laying it on. And if anybody had ever come up to me and talked to me about God, I had all this vicious, vile stuff that I would say to them about what I thought of God, and I would just say the most nastiest, violent things I could think of, and I'm not going to say them from the podium tonight. And most people would walk away, but I'm saying all that stuff, and I'm just, foaming at the mouth about God. And Ken O'Brien elbows Bob Simon next to him, and he goes, hey, it looks like we got us a believer over here. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah, you're a believer, right? And I go, no, didn't you hear what I just said? He said, well, you tell me there, how is it that you have such hatred and such violent thoughts about something that you don't believe exists? How is that? And that's why they trick you around here. They paint you into a corner. That don't get a sponsor, by the way, because they're cruel and they do this stuff to you. And so he said to me, he goes, why don't you just ask whatever power is out there, doesn't matter, for it to express itself in your life so that you know. And that was one of the things I had never heard before. I didn't know that we as individuals were allowed to ask whatever power there is out there to express itself in our life so that we know. And then it was, I couldn't think in our or we, that I would know. And I didn't even know that I was allowed to ask that question. So that was essentially, my second step came to believe that a power greater than myself. And he's like, okay, so what we do around here is the way we work the steps is we admit, come to, and make a decision, right? So we're going to admit that we don't have any experience, that we have no knowledge about this, and we're not going to go by anything you're saying or thinking. And what we're going to do is we're willing to do something different and try something beyond the library of our own knowledge and experience, and try something completely different so we have a new experience, and then make decisions based on the new experience. He says, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn this over, and then we're going to get into action, working with others, greeting, cleaning up, and we're going to do all this other stuff and see what happens. And he goes, and what we're going to do is we're going to get down on our knees, and I would have never got down on my knees and said a prayer before this, and I'm telling you, I really wouldn't have. But I was desperate enough, so I was willing to get down there on my knees, say a prayer, holding hands with a man, a grown man, right, and saying this prayer. And he says, all right, so now we're going to call down the thunder. Is essentially what we're doing, is we're going to throw it out there to the universe and see what comes back. And you're just willing and you're open-minded, right? You say you're willing and open-minded, and you're going to be honest with yourself. I said, absolutely. So I started doing this stuff, and like a week later, like I told you, I was the guy in the back of the room, the wallflowers we used to call them. Brad used to be one of them. I know, it's just about me tonight, right? Back on the wall with the black leather jacket and the dark sunglasses, my arm crossed, hating all of you, right? Judging every one of you, right? And so about 2 weeks after we did this, I was over at the kitchen cleaning the coffee pots and the cups with my buddy Sandy, who was like a 6'4" Jewish Fred Flintstone, and he was like my best friend. We used to sit at what we called the brain damage table back there in Los Angeles and shake and, pray that our sponsors wouldn't come that day, And we're over there laughing at each other about, I'm going to tell your sponsor you're doing that, that kind of thing, And, I look over Sandy's shoulder, and there's a guy against the wall in the back of the room with his arm crossed, black leather jacket, dark sunglasses, looking at me and hating me. And I could see, I just knew everything he was saying. I lived it. And I was looking at him, and my instant reaction was, no! And I started across the room to go tell him, no, I don't join anything, and I don't belong anywhere, and I'm not doing this crap, and the hell with these people. And I got about halfway across the room, and I realized, I was looking at this guy, and I got halfway across the room, and I realized that I didn't want that anymore. I wanted what was behind me with Sandy and what I had been experiencing, And that was like one of the first times that I was like realizing that there's something going on here, something amazing going on here. Because even for me, because I was numbed out, and I'm not just saying that in exaggeration. I had like all kinds of problems and different things, and I grew up in one of those homes where you carry your mother to the hospital with broken bones, and the only thing you can feel is hatred for yourself, because that's the only feeling you have, and you go and you carry her into the emergency room, and everybody's looking at you and hating your guts and thinking that you had something to do with it and it's your fault. And of course it's my fault. Everything was my fault, right? And so I was a zombie. And for that to get through was just so amazing, And then at 90 days, well, there was another instance where I was going to the meetings at the Westside Alana Club, the noon meeting, and they had a podium meeting, and if you raise your hand, you have to come up and share at the podium, right? So when they told me, listen, we can tell by looking at you what you think and what you have to say, and we don't want to hear any of it. We don't want what you have, So and what you didn't know is that he sponsored half the guys in the room and had them all chairing the meeting. So you'd be sitting there and all of a sudden they'd go, Patrick, would you like to share? And you're like, I'm not supposed to share, And then he'd look at you and tell you to go up there. So now you're like walking up there like, you're caught. And I remember the first time I went up there and I stood at the podium and I was walking by Ken O'Brien, who was sitting where Ron was sitting. And I'm like, what am I going to say? He goes, just tell him your life's never been better, you never had it so good, and sit down, right? So I got up here, and I just stood here, and I just realized I'm Patrick, I'm an alcoholic. My life's never been better, and I never had so good. And the room just erupted in clapping and laughter and all this other stuff. Because, see, they were all excited that I was part of the deal and that I was following directions and stuff. Because I couldn't see that I was the same height I am now. I was 6'2", but I was 165 pounds. I weigh about 250 right now. I was 165 pounds, my teeth were gone. I had this big head sitting on top of the broomstick body, and I was all weirded out from doing all those drugs and alcohol all those years. And, they were just excited for a person like me. Like we get excited when we see a new person take to this thing. And it was amazing for me. And then this woman kept coming up to the podium every day at noon and sharing about her sponsor, making her do an inventory, and then, and of course, it was just outrageous because the woman was sharing. She goes, I read my 4th step to my sponsor. I did a 5th step, and she's telling me that I need to look at my side in my father molesting me when I was a little girl, and she was like pissed off, and all the women and everybody in the room were all like, that's just absurd, and this woman's taking these steps way too far, and that shouldn't be allowed, and you should get a different sponsor, and just said this. And this woman kept doing this every day for like 2 weeks, and every time the whole group was just fed up with it, and they're like giving her all this advice and everything else. And after 2 weeks, she gets up there. Her name was Donna. She gets up there and she's just a completely different person. I was standing over there, and she's like, I was going to drink, so I decided if I'm going to drink, I'm going to die. Why not do what my sponsor asked me to do? So I became willing to look at my side in this. And like we think when we first go into the steps, we think it's about fault, and we think it's about guilt, because that's the only lens I know how to look through, right? And she says, no, I looked at it, my sponsor walked it through me, and I saw that I was just a little girl that trusted my father, from birth, and I didn't know any better. And that he did that and I didn't understand it, and the only thing I knew to do with it was to blame myself, and somehow deep down inside I believed that I had caused him to do that, because as little people, we can't comprehend the inadequacies of the people in charge or that stuff, so we take it upon ourselves. That way we're able to manage it. And when she did that, it was like the whole room lit up in a way like I've never seen before. And I'm telling you, I was a zombie. And I was standing over there, and it was like a beam of sunlight came down I mean, this is 31 years later, and I tell you, it's never stopped affecting me. It was like a beam of sunlight shone down right through, like we say, it's like I reached out without my voice, without my pride, like the song says. I reached out from the inside, and that was never allowed before. And I had to get out of that room immediately, but I knew walking away that there was something here, that there was a power here. And I could hear Ken O'Brien's voice saying, we're going to call down the thunder, and you will be convinced. You will know. And I didn't know that I mattered enough. I didn't know that I even, I wasn't worth getting sober. I tell the story, when I was 4 years old, my father was trying to kill my mother and, trying to break her neck over this piano bench table. And I held my breath and passed out and fell down the steps. And this big old head, which I had when I was little, boom, 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 down those wooden steps. And I woke up with a headache, throbbing headache. I had pissed my pants and all that stuff. And I knew that I had failed as a son, I had failed as a man, I failed as a family member, I failed as a human. And I knew that I lost any chance at happiness in life or becoming anybody or doing anything. And that was at 4, and it just got worse, and then, now I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous, and the sunbeam of light shines in past all that as well. And it was just, it's just like realizing that, and I like to tell people this all the time, it is, your one heart, your one love does matter. And I didn't know anything about any of that stuff when I got here. And for a long time I didn't. And so when that woman did that, I felt really that there was something here, and I knew something was here. And I just kept coming to this and doing this stuff and just hearing the most amazing stories. And, the steps, like I said, aren't to try and teach me any type of dogma or anything like that. It's to discover, like it says, that power which is God, which none of us can fully comprehend or understand. But we get to have, like the third step says, God as I understand him doesn't mean that Patrick is going to understand God, because God is infinite, in my opinion. God is infinite. By definition, infinite means beyond definition, right? What it really means is that Patrick gets to have an individual experience. We all get to have an individual experience. I think that spirituality ought to be classified with sexuality. Because, if you think about sexuality, you get to express yourself any way you want. And why wouldn't it be the same with spirituality? Why can't it just be the same, that it's open-ended, that you get to learn and grow and have your own experience? And that's what they gave me here when they taught me that. And is that clock right? What time? Wow. Well, you guys, God did step in and fast forward that clock. Is it 10 after 9? Really? What time am I supposed to end? Oh, 9:30. Okay. I thought I was out of here. Sorry about that. Anyway, so that's that experience with that woman and everything else opened my mind enough. And see, that's what we need around here, and that's what newcomers need. They don't need to just hear what's on what page. They need to have a new experience, in my opinion. But if you come to my home group, or you hang around me, or if you want me to sponsor, I tell you, listen, I'll sponsor you, but you got 30 days to prove that you really want me to sponsor you. And not that it's like I'm a performance sponsor or anything like that. It's just that, listen, if you're serious, because we get to go on a journey together. We get to commence, it's a relationship, and we get to commence shoulder to shoulder. I don't like the word sponsorship. I like the expression shoulder to shoulder. You're going to sponsor me as much as I'm sponsoring you. You're going to teach me as much as I'm going to teach you. But are you willing to go to meetings every day? Are you willing to make 3 phone calls every day? Because it's the disease defined in our book. The other thing when I got here is I thought Alcoholics Anonymous was about not drinking. And I heard this great speaker, we've had him out, Steve Lee's great out of Nashville. He tells the story about how, his first couple days of AA, and a buddy of his calls up and says, hey, we're going to be barbecuing, watching the game this Sunday. Why don't you come over? He goes, no. He goes, I'm going to be at home. And they go, you're going to stay? What are you going to be doing? He's like, well, I'm just going to be at home not drinking. I thought that that's what staying sober was. You know, I thought my experience with sobriety was the times between I drank and used, right? And I didn't want to have anything to do with it. But you find out that Alcoholics Anonymous and sobriety is not about quitting drinking. Although not drinking is absolutely, you know, abstinence is absolutely the thing. But it's not about just quitting, you know. Clint Hodge is one of my favorite speakers all the time. He passed away. He's up at the big meeting, and this guy used to say, you know, the first step doesn't say, quit, come on now. Quit being a pig, you know. That's why the program isn't called Pigs Anonymous, although in my case it certainly could be called that, you know, because I drank like a pig. I did everything, you know. And it's about not drinking and discovering why it is that I drank the way I drank, and working on those things. And I really believe that alcoholics are seekers, you know, and that's why through our whole program it says God could and would if he were sought. It doesn't say found, because maybe, you know, I think that I find God in working with others, you know, and it's just like I cannot see my own eyes, I cannot see my own ears, I cannot see my own face unless I look in a mirror. But when I'm working with someone, somehow, and I cannot see my soul, but when I'm working with a new guy and we get to talking and stuff, somehow I get to see who I really am without my story. And that's what I was looking for in drugs and alcohol. I didn't drink just across the room to ask a girl to dance, because I didn't dance, by the way, because in Hazleton you couldn't dance and look tough at the same time, so obviously dancing was out, right? So, you know, I drank to shut me off and to black out. Blackout was really my drug of choice. Whatever you got, whatever's going to get me there the fastest is what I was interested in. And when you take that stuff away, now I have to deal with the problem. And the problem, in my opinion, is me. And not that I'm bad or wrong, you know, or guilty or any stuff. It's just that I'm selfish and self-centered. And I don't even mean, I always read selfish and self-centered as bad and wrong. Selfish and self-centered just means self-oriented, you know. One of my first, you know, you stick around here long enough and you'll start relating. I was sitting along the wall there at the West Side Alana Club, and the people would come by there and come up and share at the podium just like this. And this girl was visiting from Australia, and she comes up and she's sharing, and she has this great accent and just pretty as could be. And I was just sitting there, and they had a thing there called the 3 Bs: be honest, be brief, and be seated. So you only had 3 minutes to share, so it didn't take long. But in those 3 minutes, in the time that she started sharing, you know, I first looked at her, oh, she's so pretty, I love that accent. By the time she was done and walking back, I was looking at her like, F you know, because in that 3 minutes, you know, I'm like, I'm not moving to Australia, and I'm not fighting all her brothers and her father, and, you know, I mean, that's the only way I could think of it. So I'm sitting there, and, you know, like I said, she's coming by, I'm looking at her like, you know, like this, you know, thinking no one else thinks that way, right? I never told anybody that. The next guy gets up and comes up to the podium and he goes, hi, my name's Tony, I'm an alcoholic. He goes, I don't want to move to Australia. It was like one of the first times I related to, I'm like, oh my God, these people think like I do, man. It's amazing. You know, I got 15 minutes. What I'd like to tell you is that, you know, I didn't choose to come here like I wanted to come here, like this was like Alcoholics Anonymous was on my horizon growing up, and I hope to make it someday. You know, like I said, I like washed up on the shores here, but I got to tell you, thank God that happened. I'm one of those grateful alcoholics that I'm grateful that I got beat up the way I did with drugs and alcohol, and it got me to here, because it's been the most amazing thing. All the things I was looking for in drugs and alcohol, which was to shut me off and to learn to be able to step out without the story, the narrative, the internal narrative, because we all know what it's like to be at work, and work is tough. I build houses. Work is tough as it is. But when you're working and it's you on top of work and dealing with your mind and the internal narrative and all this stuff, today I have the tools to undo that, you know? And they're in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous if you do them. If you take those actions, you wind up having the experiences outside of the library of your own knowledge and your own experiences, and you get to make different choices. And it says in our book that it's a spiritual program based it's a program based in spiritual principles and put into action. So I didn't even know what a principle was. And a principle is a law or a guideline. And like I said, you get to come up with whatever definition you want, right? My definition of it is a law or a guideline that I get to live by, think, act, and decide from. You know, because I was thinking and acting and deciding from, you know, like we say in Alcoholics Anonymous, I had, selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear doing the thinking, and terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair answering, you know, and there's like this closed loop in my head. And I was wondering why I wanted to, you know, drink myself to death. You know, here you get, like I said, you get to come up with your own definitions. The principles, laws, guidelines that I get to think, and what are the principles? The principles are forgiveness and gratitude. When I'm grateful, I was never grateful for my life, never grateful for the way I was raised or any of that stuff. And today, you know, I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful for my childhood just exactly the way it was, you know, because you don't know what's going to happen around here. Like I always tell the newcomers to get out while you still can. You know, if anybody ever watched The Twilight Zone, and they had that show where the aliens were landing and taking humans off to the new, more better place, right? And then at the end of the show, they revealed that what they were doing is they were taking them away and, you know, eating them, you know. And I always pretend that that's like what's around here because, you know, they tell you it's about not drinking and giving up that stuff, you know. And then they just, you know, you think it's about reparations to those harmed, paying the money back. It's so much worse than that. Oh, it's so much worse than that, let me tell you. And I'll prove it to you right now, let me tell you. You'll be running out here soon. Those are just exercises for you to free yourself up. For what? What do I need to be freed up from? Because I never knew of freedom. I didn't know the freedom that they spoke of, and if they would explain it to me, I wouldn't have understood it. But what's really going to be asked of you here is to start caring again. You know, open your heart and start loving again. And you'll find out that love, you know, like that saying that I used to hate, you know, I prayed to God to give me love, and he put me into service. And so I reluctantly got into service and found out that service was all about love, you know. And, you know, see, I spent my whole life, and see, like I said, don't be afraid to ask yourself what these things mean to you. So I went through a situation where I had a son, and I bought him a car for his 16th birthday, and 2 months later he was killed in that car. And, you know, I'm sober, you know. How do you deal with that kind of thing sober? And my best friend committed suicide, so I knew suicide was out. I saw what it did to me. I saw what it did to his family. I saw what it did to my family. You know, suicide is not an option, and you will get no pity from me. You know, and it's not an option. So I fell and caved in on myself, and the only thing I knew to do was to go to meetings and be of service and do the things. And if you ever go out to York Street, there's a big mansion out there, and you know, I had all this. You know, it wasn't anger. It was beyond anger, and I just put all that energy into putting tile and all this stuff in this AA sobriety house out there. And I went on this journey. You know, like they say, when you find yourself in the valley of darkness, keep moving, right? So I kept moving, and I was being of service and stuff. And it found out that you know these old timers around here that you hate, and don't worry about it, you probably won't become one, but you know, I was in a meeting, and he knew me for years, and he had seen me for years, and he knew that I was a very, you know, zealous AA member, let's say, and he knew I was having a hard time. And he was like Ken O'Brien. You know, he didn't come up and pat me on the back of that stuff. He came up and said what I needed to hear, and he walks up to me. He goes, I know you and I know your story, you know, which the cops used to say to me all the time, right? I know you, we know your story, he says, you know, remember, the heart breaks open. And the reason it breaks open is so that it can hold more. And I didn't want to hear it. But all of a sudden, that path was set in front of me, and now I go on that path. And I realized that I had spent all my life with my tin cup out, trying to get enough attention and applause and, adoration and, and affection from women and all this other stuff, trying to get you to make me feel good about me. And it's impossible. And I arrived at every situation all my life in need of you helping me. And that was selfish. And like our disease is defined as selfish and self-centered to the extreme, that's what I'm talking about. And I went on this journey where I found out, remember, I get to come up with my own definition. What is the heart? What is love, right? For me, and just for me, the heart is not a container that I gotta go around hoping you'll give me some so I could put it in there and fill it up to some invisible line I never know where it's at or how much is enough. I don't think that we're designed that way. I believe today that the heart is a dispenser, and as you give of it, it's everywhere. And knowing that today just rocks me, because I'm telling you, some days I still feel like that kid carrying my mom into the hospital, and it's just so raw. But it's raw in a different way, where it's in a raw possibility. And that's what the whole program is about, is you learning to give of you, because here's the thing. See, I want an unlimited supply of something, right? And we have that AA joke around here about the alcoholic stumbling down the beach, and he comes across the genie bottle and he rubs it, and the genie says, "Thanks for letting me out. You got 3 wishes, right?" And what would you like? He goes, "I want a mug of beer that every time I down it, it fills right back up," right? So the genie goes, boom, he gets the mug, he downs it, fills right back up, downs it, fills back up, downs it, fills back up. And genie goes, "You satisfied?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "All right, you got 2 other wishes, what do you want?" He goes, "I'll have 2 more of those." Yeah. That's the infinite, that I believe in, the unlimited that I was always looking for. And I'm telling you that I think that I'm onto something. I'm crazy. You all know that, if you haven't gotten that yet. And that is, see, I have an unlimited supply of something, and I believe you have an unlimited supply of something. And I think it's me. And see, when I give of myself, I get to experience myself without my story. I'm not all that stuff that I thought of myself. I'm willing to surrender that over and be of service to someone else. And like I said, there's so many times I couldn't even count them in the 31 years where the phone's ringing and I'm supposed to meet that guy. And I've worked all day, and I just want to stay at home with the pretty girl and, watch a movie, right? And, I forgot. And do I answer, do I not answer? And right, these are the things that, for me, can't be up for discussion. Because if I get to discuss them, I'm doing the selfish thing. So I can't leave it up for discussion. I answer the phone. Some selfish rant, right? And all right, I'll go hang out with you, right? And I go and spend time with this guy, and not once in 31 years did I ever drive away regretting showing up. As a matter of fact, I can't tell you how many times that I drove away from there, just feel it. I've never spent a minute working inventory on my father. My job is to forgive him, and I could tell you stories about him jumping up and down on me and all kinds of stuff. Today, I feel like I was trained to help just about anybody. Because I can talk to anybody today. I can go into prisons, I can go into hospitals, I can go anywhere. And that's the gift of it. And I can't tell you how many times I was working with a guy, and as I'm walking out to my truck, feeling like $1 million, feeling better than I've ever felt in my life, and I feel like my dad tasseling my hair going, "There you go, son, that's what I trained you to do, man." And maybe that doesn't mean a lot to you, but it's like I got my father back. I got my relationship back with my father, and I told you how he died. And the last thing I ever told him was, "When you die, have your family send me your grave address so I can go there and go to the bathroom on it." I mean, that was the last thing I said to my father, and we fought. And today, it's a complete relationship, and it's a loving relationship, and I have great memories. And I used to have nightmares like you cannot. Well, maybe some of you guys do have that experience, And then love like I said, love is really, I think, what we're here for. And I'm not the type of guy. I mean, me talking about love is a joke. It really is. I mean, because the only thing I knew about love was I would go out with a girl and I would break up with her and throw her away just to see if I would have any effect upon her whatsoever. And if she would come back. That was the only way I could tell. She could swear up and down and, oh, please, if you just let me in. And I'd be like, in where? There's nowhere in to be let in. If you know of the place to be let in, I'd like to get in, you know? And today it's really, you know, and one more time, it's like, I need love, I need this currency that I don't have enough of, right? And it really is, it's a giving of myself, and it's not so much about receiving it back, because that's always been the catch for me. It's about experiencing Patrick, and it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing, which is amazing gift. What it's about is me experiencing me being loving. You know? And I could sit here and tell you stories how I was robbed as a kid and shortchanged, and I didn't get this and I didn't get that, and we were raised on welfare, and the old man would take off with the welfare check, and there's 8 of us not eating for 2 weeks, you know, and living, you know. I could tell you all those stories, but you know what? It has nothing to do with me today other than to help a new person or to use it as a story. Today, it's about learning how to be what God intended me to be. You know, the role assigned, accept the role assigned. What's the role? The role is Patrick. What's an oak tree's role? Is to be an oak tree. What's your role? Is to be you. Without your story, without the blocks, without the inhibitors and all that stuff. And to give of this natural stuff you have. Because I like to say, you know, that I get to get back to the factory settings. You know, and I thought all my life when, you know, I was on that baby conveyor belt, you know, and they looked away a couple times and forgot to put a couple parts in there. I got by that person, you know, where love wasn't going to get, you know. And, you know, today it's like I feel so complete sometimes it's crazy. And I know in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, you come into a meeting and say, oh, I was just in prison, I stabbed 4 guys, and I got arrested, and, you know, shot my father. It's like, oh, welcome, you know, glad you're here, right? You know, I pawned the kids' Christmas toys to get another, you know, oh, welcome. I sold my butt on the street for 10 years. Oh, welcome. But if you come up into an AA meeting and you say, I'm grateful to be an alcoholic and be of service there, it's like, oh, God, not one of these guys again, you know. I mean, one of my favorite speakers is Father Tom Weston, and he says, you know, if you don't have something seriously wrong with you, we're not really interested in you. You know? But today, I have all those experiences and stuff, but today, it's like a garden that I get to get the fruit from and give of and feed others with. And when I do that, like, you know, that crazy story I first heard when I came to AA that I hated, you know, hell is a banquet with all the people sitting around with spoons too long to be able to feed themselves, and they have all this amazing food, but they can't eat because their spoons are too long and they can't get the food to their mouth. And heaven is in the next room, and it's the same exact setting. It's just everybody's feeding each other, you know, and that's what we do here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm real grateful to be here. Thanks for letting me share. Thanks.
Let's thank Patrick one more time. Thank you. It's customary for us to form a line and thank our speakers. They come here at their own time and expense, and it's pretty cool to have you here. Don't forget the meeting after the meeting. What else do I got to announce? Oh, next week's speaker, Leslie D. out of Connecticut's coming down. She's a very nice, powerful speaker, so that's pretty cool. Which we do every week. So we do this every week. So we got a nice way of closing. If you guys want to circle up, we'll say a little prayer. If you want to be of service, we got to leave. Here's the alcoholic test that everybody loves. 7 deep, 5 across. If you get that right, you're not alcoholic. Close the circle. Close the circle. Good stuff. one other reminder, we have CDs that are available free over here of the last month. Anyway, moment of silence, do with it whatever you like, followed by Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Keep coming back. This week's CD will be available next week and Thursday at the Big Book Study at Salem UCC Church. Thursday at 7:30.